All right, we're going to go over how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go through quite a few of these questions. So the first one is negative 10 plus 3. So let's look at negative 10 plus positive 3. So when you're adding integers and the signs are different, I want you to look at it this way. I have 10 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 negatives. And I have 3 positives. 1, 2, 3 positives. So what I would do in this particular case is I would make 0 pairs. 1 positive and 1 negative makes a 0. So I can make 3 0 pairs, okay? And then that tells me how many I have left. I have 7 left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left. I have 7 negatives left. So when I put this in, my answer is going to be negative 7. And hopefully this will make more sense as we go through. Now this second question is kind of easy. 2 plus 5 is positive 7. Don't let those throw you off. 5 times 8, that's another easy one. 5 times 8 is 40. They will give you positives and negatives. Then you have a question like this. We have negative 5 divided by negative 5. Now, we talked about in our guided notes that it's just kind of division. It's just kind of backward skip counting. We want to see how many times 5 will go into 5. Well, we know 5 goes into 5 one time. How many times does negative 5 go into negative 5? Well, it's the same thing. When you're dividing a negative by a negative, your answer is going to be a positive. So it is going to be positive 1 as well. Okay? This one, 5 times negative 2. This is skip counting. I'm going 5. I'm taking negative 2 5 times. So negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. And the way you can do that is you could say that's 10, because 5 times 2 is 10, but it's negative 2, so it'd be negative 10. Anytime you have 1 positive and 1 negative, when you're multiplying, your answer is going to be negative. When you're adding and subtracting, it's going to be a little bit different. All right, this one, how many times will negative 1 go into positive 3? Well, we know 1 goes into 3 3 times, so negative 1 would go into 3 negative 3 times. 5 goes into 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, that's 4. Now this one right here, I'm glad this one came up. 7 minus negative 6. And I wrote it like this because sometimes you're going to see it with the parentheses around it. Whenever you have a subtraction of a negative, in your guided notes we talked about this being adding the opposite, or it's the negative is the opposite of. So let's just rewrite this by adding the opposite. Instead of subtracting, we're going to add, but we're going to add the opposite of negative 6, which would be positive 6. Well, now that's an easy problem. 7 plus 6. We know 7 plus 6 is 13, and that's exactly what it is. 7 minus negative 6 is the same thing as 7 plus positive 6. Now we have this one right here where the numbers are the same. We have positive 8, and we're adding to it negative 8. So this one's kind of one of those where I have 8 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I have 8 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I made 0 pairs for every single one of them, they would all be 0 pairs. So negative 8 and positive 8 is 0. All right, when you have a problem like this, negative 3 minus negative 8, let's just rewrite it. Negative 3 plus positive 8. Now I have 3 negatives, and I have 8 positives. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, look there. That's 3 0 pairs, because I have a negative and a positive, negative and a positive, negative and a positive. Those make 3 0 pairs. So what do I have left? I have 8 left. 8 positives left, so my answer would be positive. Not 8, sorry, 5 positives left after I took away, so it'd be positive 5. So I don't mean to confuse you there. So I have 3 negatives, I have 8 positives, but because I took away those 0 pairs, I'm left with 5 positives, so that's why the answer would be positive 5 here. Same thing here, I have negative 8 times 3. What I'm doing here is I'm going negative 8 3 times, so that would be 24, but because it's negative 8, it'd be negative 24. So a negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. The rules are not the same for addition and subtraction though, but they are for division. When I have negative 4 going into negative 24, I'm just going to rewrite this as 4 goes into 24. I have a negative and a negative. Those cancel each other out when I'm doing multiplication and division. my answer is not going to be negative. I'm going to see how many times 4 goes into 24, and 4 goes into 24 6 times. So my answer here would be 6. Now this one, these are bigger numbers, but don't let that scare you. 83 plus negative 61. I have 83 positives and 61 negatives. I am not going to write out all those positive and negatives, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I know that there will be 61 that'll cancel each other out, because if I had 83 plus signs and 61 negative signs here, 61 of them would cancel each other out. So all I'm going to do here is do 83 minus 61. 3 minus 1 is 2. 8 minus 6 is 2. I'm going to have 22 left over. Now, am I going to have 22 positives left over, or am I going to have 22 negatives left over? Well, the answer is going to be positive, because 83 is the bigger number to start with. So whenever you have big numbers like this, simply subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. Okay, subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. So the answer would be positive 22. This one right here, I have big numbers here. I'm gonna rewrite it with 90 times 9. Now, I have negative times a negative. When I'm doing a negative times a negative, my answer is gonna be positive, so I'm gonna write positive here. And then 9 times 0 is 0, and 9 times 9 is 81, so 90 times 9 is 810. And it's positive because negative times a negative is a positive. Now I've got this one, 91 minus negative 46. Don't let that scare you. Rewrite it. 91 plus positive 46. Whenever you're subtracting, you want to add the opposite. I'm going to write that there. Add the opposite. Okay? Now, 91 plus 46, I can easily do that one. 91 plus 46. 6 plus 1 is 7, and 9 plus 4 is 13, and so my answer would be 137. Negative 27, there's a lot of negatives here, minus negative 39. Whenever we're subtracting, we want to add the opposite. Negative 27 plus positive, the opposite of negative 39 is positive 39. Now I have 27 negatives, 39 positives. Now, I could simply write all those negatives out and all those positives out, but I don't want to do that. I know that I'm going to have 27 zero pairs, okay? So I'm going to do 39 minus 27, leaves me with 2, 12, right? So I'm going to have 12 left over. Are they going to be positive or negative? Well, they're going to be positive because I've got 39 positives to begin with, the bigger number. So subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. Now I have positive 280 divided by negative 40. Whenever I have a positive divided by a negative, my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to finish up with my answer being negative. So I'm going to figure out how many times 40 goes into 280. So 40 goes into 280. I know 4 goes into 28 7 times. So 40 times 7 is 280. So my correct answer is 7, but remember it's negative, so it'd be negative 7. Because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And a positive times a negative is a negative. But when you're adding and subtracting, that's not the same. My answer here is going to be positive. So 17 times 2 is 34, so this would be 340. This one, I have negative 87 plus negative 40. I'm going to separate those. I have negative 87. I've got 87 negatives, and I'm adding 40 more negatives. So I have no zero pairs here. So what I'm going to simply do is add those together because the signs are the same. If the signs are the same, you're going to add them and take their sign, and their sign is negative. So it'd be negative 127. Now, we would be tempted, some people would be tempted to do a negative plus a negative is a positive, and that is not true because we're adding the negatives together. So you're in debt $87 and somebody comes and borrows $40 more from you, or you go borrow $40 more. You borrow $40 more. Now you're $127 in debt. It's not the same as when you're multiplying and dividing. All right, let's do 2 problems in the challenge zone. All right, so we've got We've got a positive divided by a negative. Remember, when we're dividing, the answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to make a mark here that I'm doing negative, and I'm going to see how many times 3 goes into 102. Well, 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Remainder of 1, bring down my 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times, so my answer is 34, but it's negative, so it would be negative 34. And let's do one more here. Oh, no, that one's too easy. 50 times 60. 5 times 6 is 30. So 50 times 60 would be 3,000. Let's do this one. Now we have negative times a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. So 40 times 2, 4 times 2 would be 8. So 40 times 20 would be 800. And negative times a negative is a positive. So it'd be positive there. I got those easy ones. Now let's do this harder one. Negative 140 minus 584. Now, what do I do here? I want to add the opposite. I want to do negative 140, add the opposite. What's the opposite of 584? It would be negative 584. So now we have a negative plus a negative. Well, the signs are the same. So I'm simply going to add them together. 140 plus 584, or you could write it 584 plus 140. That might be a little easier to write. And then we'll simply add them. 4, 12, 724. And it's negative 724 because those are both negative. Always watch your sign. I was almost about to write that in there, and I would have messed my score up and have brought mine down. But I was able to do that. Now I have to do one more because I need a smart score of 100. So 43 goes into negative 3,000. My answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to make myself a mark there so I don't mess up. 3,956, and my answer is going to be negative. So 43 goes into, good night. I know 4 goes in, let's try, would that be 9 times? 43 times 9? What is 43 times 9? Is that 387? Yeah. So 43 times 9 is 387. And so then I'm going to subtract, let's see, that's 8, 15. That gives me 8, 0, so 86. Okay, now 43 goes into 86. That's much more manageable. 2. 43 times 2 is 86, and so my answer is 92, but it's negative, and I made myself a note over there so I didn't forget that it was negative 92. And I got a smart score of 100. So hopefully this video helps you.